couple of questions for you, and sorry if they seem a little nitpicky or detailed, but we didn't get this bill till very late last night, and that's what happens when things get rushed through around here. So we're kind of still digesting some of this. So a couple of questions for you. On the magazines being dropped, the magazine limit being dropped from 10 to 7.
Yes.
Simple question is why? Why are we limiting law-abiding citizens' ability to defend themselves in a home invasion by 30%?
I think the short answer to that, Bill, is that if you have a magazine with only 7 bullets, it will limit the amount of people you could unlawfully kill.
Well, that's true. It also would limit the ability to defend yourself, would it not, from people that are invading your home?
Change the clip.
Change the clip. I'm sure the people who are under invasion will be thrilled to hear that. Change the clip. We heard a senator say that the other day on the radio. Change the magazine, or change the clip and call the police. That'll work great in rural Albany County or up in the Adirondacks, where your nearest police may be 60 miles away. So I don't think they'll be too thrilled to hear that response. But I heard you say earlier, and part of the thing that we like is that there's increased penalties for criminals to illegally use weapons. The truth is we already have penalties for illegal use of weapons, do we not?
Yes.
And criminals, being what they are, don't seem to care too much about any penalty. That's why they are, by definition, criminals. So I'm just wondering why we think that this is, after 600 failed gun laws apparently in this state, why this is the magic elixir that is suddenly going to get criminals to pay attention to a law. Isn't it kind of a fallacy to think that? And aren't we just infringing upon law-abiding citizens' rights to keep and bear arms? And I'm not sure what part of will not be or cannot or shall not be infringed is subject to debate or difficult to understand. But are we not just infringing upon the law-abiding citizen?
No, we're not. I think you're mistaken in that this bill has a two-pronged approach. It raises the penalties for criminals. Mm-hmm. You're right about that. And it also tries, as best we can, as a state, because, this province should belong to the federal government. But like other places in our law, they haven't acted. So we believe that it's up to us to lead the way. The border of Connecticut is only a few miles away from the state of New York. Yep. And I, for one, don't want to wait for a tragedy like Newtown before we take some action to prevent it.
Right, and I don't really want to wait for a potential tragedy of a home being invaded and losing a family because they obeyed this law and only had 7 bullets in a magazine when there were 2 or 3 animals coming in to do them harm. So it cuts both ways. Make no mistake about that. It cuts both ways, and it mainly impacts the law-abiding citizen. Let me ask you a question about federal law. In the Obamacare legislation, there is a provision in there. It's Senate Amendment 3276, Section 2716, Part C. Some people say it was put in there as to quiet down the NRA, but nevertheless, it is in there. And it says that the government cannot collect, quote, any information relating to the lawful ownership or possession of a firearm or ammunition. So by enacting this law, are we not then violating what is now federal law?
I don't know. I think that relates to health care. I don't think it has anything to do with this.
Absolutely relates to gun control legislation because it says you cannot collect any information. It has nothing to do with health care. Nothing.
Yeah. You could say that it outlaws our whole total licensing scheme, if you wanted to.
No, I can't say that because the law, this amendment is very specific in what it says. It says that the government cannot collect any information relating to the lawful ownership or possession of a firearm or ammunition. It's very clear. So
it is clear that the federal government doesn't choose to do that, but it doesn't say anything about the states.
Well, I'm just saying, you're saying to me, and I didn't go to law school, but you're saying to me that it's okay that New York State willfully violate federal law, willfully violate Obamacare, because that's what we're doing.
I'm in favor of states' rights.
Doesn't answer the question, Joe. But so there's no legal answer to that, just that you're in favor of states' rights. So that's okay with you that we're ignoring that aspect of Obamacare.
We're not ignoring it. It's just that they haven't prevented us from taking that kind of action.
Well, I suspect they will when the legal
challenges arise. That's another
challenges
provision
arise
of the Constitution that allows the state to take different action than the federal government if they've not prevented us from doing that by taking that power away from us.
Absolutely correct. We are allowed to take different action. I don't believe we're allowed to violate federal law, but we'll see. One of the sections here, there's, if I'm right, there is an immediate, as of today, there'll be an immediate ban on law-abiding citizens' ability to own a weapon, or to purchase a weapon, right, that is, as of right now, still legal, correct? There's none of them on the shelves, by the way. They're selling like hotcakes. But they are legal to buy it now. They'll be illegal, let's say, 5 o'clock when the governor signs this, whenever it happens to be, right?
Correct.
That's correct. Is it 60 days down the line that the increased penalties kick in? For
failure to register?
No,
right?
Related to criminal activity with a gun, illegal possession of a gun. Is there, I thought I saw there's a 60
days.
60. So we give the criminals a 60-day window to wrap up their crime without those increased penalties, but we slam the door on law-abiding citizens today. That makes sense. Okay. Ammo registration. Already hearing from local gun shop owners, one of whom I've already heard from is the biggest gun shop owner in this area. He's already said, he was on the radio today, I've already gotten word, he's not going to comply. He will not do these private sale background checks. That's him. I don't know what's going to happen across the state. I suspect that these men and women that adhere to and honor the Second Amendment of these United States will also choose not to comply. Dick's Sporting Goods may decide not to do it, and they're a huge gun seller. There may be a lot of retailers that say, we're not doing it. We're not going to maintain the records. We're not going to go through the background checks because we disagree with them for whatever reason, and I'm not even arguing whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying there's a lot of them are going to have objection to that, and for 10 lousy dollars, they're just simply not going to do it. What do we do then? How do private sales take place if, in mass, nothing happens? If all over the state people refuse to comply with this, what's our plan then?
Well, first of all, licensed dealers may not want to participate in a gun show, and that's their right. But this bill incentivizes them to do so by allowing them to charge a fee. So
$10.
there are some licensed dealers that will want to get that fee, and they can probably get a lot of fees at a gun show. So they'll be willing to participate. As far as the ammunition is concerned, when you talked about the licensed dealers, again, I have to repeat myself. I believe that those folks are lawful citizens and they will comply with the law.
I'm not saying they will not. I'm not saying that they won't comply. I'm saying they just may choose not to participate. But I think you misunderstood my question. In a private sale, not between family members, but I want to sell my gun to another assembly member. That would require a NICS check, correct?
Right. Just like a gun show sale, it would be the same requirement.
Yes, correct. But we're not at a gun show. I want to sell it. I then need a NICS check, and I cannot find a dealer anywhere to do it. None of the gun shops will do it. The major retailers have decided not to do it. So it's not a gun show thing. It's just you're going to bring a stop virtually to a lot of private sales that way, I think, if they choose not to comply. It's not that they're flaunting the law. They're choosing not to participate. And we can't force them, can we? Is there any provision in here that says
no?
Okay,
but
can't
I think
force.
we can probably rest assured that there will be voluntary compliance because there is a fee involved, and I suspect that there are a lot of gun dealers who are going to want that fee.
Yeah, I don't think they're clamoring for $10, Joe. With all the record-keeping requirements that they're under right now, they're selling guns and ammo like it's going out of style. This $10 doesn't matter to these guys.
I know if I was a dealer and it brings a customer into the shop that I'd want to do that.
We'll see. I mean, we will see what happens. I may be wrong, but it's not what I'm hearing so far. So far, there's, earlier in the debate, 57 sections of law that we're amending, right? Plus various chapter amendments,
yes.
right? So we've got some issues with this bill already, which I think speaks to why we don't rush things or why we should not rush things. Would you agree with that or not agree? I mean, do you think this law, as it's written right now, is complete?
I agree that in a perfect world, we should have extended hearings, and we should try to have as perfect a piece of legislation as can be had on the books. I also believe that when we have a pileup of events, like what happened in Wisconsin and Aurora, and then it strikes close to home in Newtown, Connecticut, that this cries out for action. And if the federal government is not going to do it, as I said before, then the state of New York has to, once again, like it has in the past, lead the way.
So, but there's no indication that the federal government is not going to take action. They, in fact, are on the verge of taking action shortly. Was this not just a rush to get something done so that we could have bragging rights across the state? Because clearly there's a lot of problems with this bill that could have been taken care of before printing this a couple of hundred times, rolling it out to the population of New York under cover of darkness without the details being hashed out. This is like half cooking the meal, and then everybody gets food poisoning from it because it's not done correctly. There's a lot that could have been done.
The governor is trying to save lives, and I have to commend them for that.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about saving lives. As my colleague pointed out, 769 homicides, which have been dropping year after year after year. Now, I know next year when they drop again, people will talk about how this ban did it. It won't have anything to do with it, hardly, because only 5 were caused by long guns. Long guns, not assault rifles. May have been 5 at maximum, might have been 2, might have been 1, might have been none, we don't know, but it was 5. So if this is about saving lives, why aren't you going after handguns, which are by and large overwhelmingly the problem and overwhelmingly the weapon of choice among gang members? Why not? And doesn't that sort of lack a little bit of integrity to go after point? Hold on.
We are going after handguns. We are going after handguns. We've done that before, and we're doing it again in this bill.
What handgun?
We've made it a C-violent felony to have a handgun in the state of New York.
Illegally.
Illegally.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you're talking about?
So you think that the criminals are going to pay attention to that because now it's a Class C felony?
Well, what do you want to do? You want to make it...
I'm simply saying that you're making the point that you want to save lives, and if you were truly interested in doing that, you'd be having an argument about banning all weapons, number one, which I don't agree with, but you'd be having that argument because that would, that would be an actually valid argument to have, that we should ban all weapons. It'd be a complete violation of the Second Amendment, but apparently that's trivial anymore. But what I'm saying here is it lacks a little bit, or it smacks a little bit of grandstanding to say that we're going to go after these assault weapons, which cause statistically across the nation, and it's the same holds true in New York, assault weapons are used in 1/5, 0.2% of all violent crimes, and in about 1% of gun crimes. 1 to 7% of all homicides in the U.S. are caused by assault weapons. So don't kid yourself that we're going after the real issue here, because we're not.
There's nobody grandstanding here, especially not the governor. I agree with you. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I'm going to surprise you. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I believe that in the Constitution. I also believe in the preamble that I won't read. But more importantly, we have to remember the Constitution was amended back when they used muskets, okay? With one shot being able to be fired by a musket, and then you had to reload.
Yep.
Remember that?
I absolutely do. And you know why?
Remember that?
Because that was the state-of-the-art weapon of the day, Joe.
That's right. Our Constitution has to expand.
Gotcha.
As the times call for it.
So the Constitution was also written and distributed on a printing press. So are we saying we should limit the freedom of speech because, the internet and text messaging and everything else? That's just not what they intended.
The Supreme Court of the United States renders decisions every day that interprets the Constitution and expands its applicability to today's time.
Oh, you're right. And they've ruled 3 times now that the right of the people to defend themselves cannot be infringed, which I believe is exactly what we're doing. I believe this is just an arbitrary...
That's not in the constitutional amendment in the Second Amendment.
Why did we not come up with a 5-round limit or a 2 or a 1? Why 7? What's the magic number there at 7?
The governor proposed 7. We thought it was reasonable, and so did the Senate.
I'll be back.